Good morning, Dr. Shannon. I am here with you, and you are the recipient of ATHE's 2022 Career Achievement in Academic Theater Award. Dr. Shannon, as I've written in my letter, you are a trailblazing scholar, superb mentor, dynamic professor, and most notably a pioneer of August Wilson studies. And I believe deeply that your career exemplifies a scholar teacher whose professional example inspires students and colleagues in all areas of academic life. And I want to thank you for chatting with me this morning.
Thank you, Dr. Long, AKA Khalid. I am honored to be the recipient of this award. And I thank you so very much, first and foremost, for your recommendation, for your initial recommendation. It means quite a bit to me.
Yes. It's interesting because when you think about people who've not only shaped your career, but shaped the field and the discipline that you're interested in being in, your name is at the top of the list. And I just said, Dr. Shannon deserves this. And so let's move forward with it. So yes, congratulations again.
Thank you.
I got some questions for you, as you know, and I'm going to jump right in. Question number one is, can you share with us a little bit about your journey into higher education? Specifically as a professor of African-American literature, actually, with an emphasis on African-American drama.
Absolutely. It started, my first question is, how far do you want to go back? Right. But I will start at an institution which you may know a little something about, and that's the University of Maryland at College Park.
Yes.
Which is where I got my PhD in 19-umpty.
Right.
But at that time, Khalid, if I may call you Khalid.
Oh, yes.
That was back in the 1980s, the early 1980s, when there were not a lot of courses in African-American literature, per se, at the University of Maryland at College Park. And so when it came time for me as a matriculating PhD student there to decide upon a topic for my dissertation, I had grown a little bit frustrated. I could tell you anything you wanted to know about Ernest Hemingway, William Faulkner, Ezra Pound, right, etc., but very little beyond, say, Richard Wright or Toni Morrison, not to disparage them. Very little on African-American literature. So I determined that I was going to be a trailblazer even then in my graduate work. I didn't shy away from a subject matter that did not have a lot of scholarship, not a lot of easy stuff to go to. Right. So I felt then, as I do now, of the necessity of scholarship. And the sort of kind of bravery, because it was kind of brave for a PhD student. You just want to get out. Right. It's hard to get out. But I took it upon myself then to take a challenging topic. And my dissertation topic was on Leroy Jones, the revolutionary plays of Leroy Jones, AKA Amiri Baraka. Right. At that time, there were no Amiri Baraka readers. Subsequently, there were several studies on him and collected plays. But at that time, I gathered 13 revolutionary plays by Leroy Jones, largely as a result of scouring journals. Many of them were published in journals. So I did that, and I analyzed his works, the ethos, if you will, of the zeitgeist of the Black arts movement, looking at Leroy Jones's plays. And so that really got me interested in not only Black literature. I was already interested in Black literature, right, but this sort of steered me toward Black drama, Black theater, Black playwrights. And specifically those, beginning with those in the 1960s, of course, that was the heyday, right, the beginning, the genesis, if you will, of Black theater. So I really focused upon, and then I did collateral reading. And so basically, working on my dissertation at the University of Maryland, was an education for me in terms of African American literature that I did not get in the classrooms at the University of Maryland. And so later on, when I was on the market for a job, Howard University offered me a tenure track position. Of course, I began teaching several courses in composition, but every now and then they throw in a plum course that allowed me to teach African American literature. But of course, as you know, as an assistant professor, one has to publish.
Yes. Yes.
So I'd already been bitten by the Black theater. I was, I had that been introduced to that in my graduate work. And so I cannot recall how I stumbled upon August Wilson.
Okay.
The only thing I can recall is reading the play Fences. And I talk about that in my book, The Dramatic Vision. And yes, Khalid, I bought a copy. I talk about that in the preface of The Dramatic Vision of August Wilson, how I came to do research, how August Wilson's work sort of beckoned to me, and the timing, the serendipity. And I would go so far as to say it's sort of a spiritual calling.
Yes.
At that, it's sort of, you hear all these signs, things sort of align just so, and you just go willingly toward it. And so that was, that was back in the late 1980s. My first publication was on Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. My very first peer-reviewed publication was on Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. And it was published in a journal called Black American Literature Forum, which is now African American Review. I'm gonna resist the cliche, the rest was history, but I do want to say that at that time, August Wilson was very well known in the regional and Broadway theaters. But my purpose, again, moving toward that sort of spiritual gravitational pull, that I felt, again, I was doing meaningful work that was necessary. So I tried to do was to forge that link between the theater world and the classroom and scholarship. And so I situated my scholarship in that particular area. As a result, I wrote articles, and people were hungry. Editors of journals were hungry for information on August Wilson. And of course, I wrote articles. Ultimately, I guess somebody noticed that here's this lady out here writing about August Wilson. So I received invitations to write a book. And I brought this too. As a result of my work on August Wilson in my first book, I was invited to write, do a study on just Fences, because Fences was and is one of the most popular and most taught plays and performed plays in high school as well as higher education. And so sort of like, and one thing led to another. I was kept being called upon, post-show discussions, contribute to collections of essays, etc. Fast forward, unfortunately, Mr. Wilson passed away in 2005. I felt obligated. I felt compelled to establish the August Wilson Society. Was established at Howard University in the spring of 2006. Pulled together some of my colleagues from various disciplines. They agreed, and the society was formally established in April of 2006. And that still keeps me quite busy, Khalid. The August Wilson Society, very active, very relevant, very meaningful, and much needed.
So that's about 16 years.
You're absolutely right. And and so I've spearheaded that effort for 16 years.
I don't think I realized that it's been that long. I didn't realize it's been that long. Okay.
It really has.
Wow. Wow.
And again, I want to publicly thank you for joining that effort.
Oh, yes.
A couple of years back. We really appreciate your leadership as vice president and got a lot of things done.
Yes.
But we're still moving forward. We're still planning activities. Of course, we have our biannual colloquium. The next one will be held in Pittsburgh. And the timing of that, Khalid, will be aligned with the opening of the August Wilson Archives.
Yes.
The University of Pittsburgh Library System has been fortunate enough to acquire the August Wilson papers.
Yes.
And so they reached out, the University of Pittsburgh Library System reached out to the August Wilson Society to work with them.
Yes.
To help them establish some meaningful programming around a week-long celebration of the opening of the archives. So the August Wilson Society will play a very dominant role there.
Yes.
March of 2023.
Okay.
We're going to have a panel. We're assembling a panel. Dr. Isaiah Wooten is playing a major role in that panel, where scholars will actually go to the archive and just engage. And of course, I'm anxious to get there. Yes. This will be the first group of scholars to go to the August Wilson Archive. And so what we will do is to put together a panel of those scholars, and they will come back and present what they found, react to it, contextualize it at the colloquium. We're going to cross-list that panel with the events that we have scheduled for the August Wilson Society's colloquium, which will take place at the August Wilson African American Cultural Center, which you visited in Pittsburgh.
Yes.
So there's a lot going on there.
Yeah. Congratulations on all of that.
Thank you so much.
Work. You know, I consider you to be a pioneer of August Wilson studies. You've laid the foundation along with several other scholars. I would include Alan Nadell, I would include Ken Piera, I would include Sandra Richards, I would include Harry Elam, and of course, I'm thinking Paul Carter Harrison.
Yes.
And there's a few others, of course, that I'm not mentioning at this moment, but there are a number of scholars. But among all of them, you have really, I think, perhaps published the most work on August Wilson to date. Do you consider August Wilson to be perhaps, you know, a significant part, or perhaps the greatest part of your legacy?
Absolutely. I was thinking about that over the weekend. When you think about a career achievement award, and how very much my work on August Wilson, and of course, as you know, I've published on Black female playwrights. I've published on Ernest Gaines. I've published on other African American writers, but it's been my trajectory. Calling, going back to that word again, that I was drawn to cover the bases, and knowing, and you know, of course, I'm at the point now, Khalid, though, when I read an article when somebody is taking issue with something Sandra Shannon said, that makes me feel good, you know? Well, Sandra Shannon said this in this article, however. So what it does, of course, it forms the basis for future discourse. And I'm glad to have initiated that scholarly discourse. I don't take offense to somebody challenging me. I'm just one scholar. This is my perspective. And so if keeping the discipline alive means challenging me, then so be it. But you got to come right. You got to come with it. Not just for the sake of challenging. But you're absolutely right. As I said, you know, of course, professionally, largely due to my publications on August Wilson, I received tenure at Howard University. And then, of course, I wrote several books, which I was able to apply for a full professor. Several books on August Wilson. So I owe a lot to Mr. Wilson's work. And so I think I think I'm very fortunate, Khalid, to have, I'm tempted to say landed on, but I still feel as if I'm drawn. The path has been laid there for me.
Yes. Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
I do.
It's like you find yourself in the moment. You got these skills, you got the knowledge. What are you going to do with it?
Right. Right.
Do you just see degrees and titles on the paper and you feel good about yourself? And, but you feel like you've been blessed.
Right.
First and foremost, having been able to afford a graduate education.
Yes.
I don't know. These days and times, I'm not quite sure what the situation is, but yes. It took some finagling to pay for the coursework. But fortunately, I was able to get graduate assistantships.
Right.
Thanks to University of Maryland, I was able to get a graduate assistantship that allowed me to teach 2 courses in exchange for the tuition money to pay for 2 courses.
Right.
So that's basically how I worked my way through graduate. And thank you, University of Maryland, for that. Right. But of course, I had to bring it. It wasn't like anybody gave me anything beyond that, because they could have, they could easily take it back. But I realized then that the way was being paid for me.
Yes.
And I didn't want to take it for granted.
Right.
Go ahead.
No, I'm just going to say, you mentioned your work on others outside of August Wilson, such as Lynn Nottage, Lorraine Hansberry, and Ernest Gaines, of course. You have an essay that I actually teach often in my African American theater class. It's in if I remember correctly, I think it's in the Cambridge Companion to African American Theater, edited by Harvey Young. I think it's the essay, Black Women Playwrights Cross Cultural Borders.
Yes.
Is that the essay? Yes. I use that essay a lot often. And I really like that essay because I think it is a contemporary essay, but you look at several Black women playwrights across across time. Lorraine Hansberry, Lynn Nottage. Is it Alice Childress you also write about?
Yes, Childress is in it.
And also Adrian Kennedy. And you talk about how their work, it's not what's the word I'm looking for? It may not be as easy or accessible to pick up, but you talk about how their dramas go across the US borders, the American borders, and primarily go into the African diaspora. And I appreciate that article, and I use it often in my classrooms because I want students to understand deeply how Black literature, even Black literature that we think is confined to the US, is always connected to a greater diaspora.
Absolutely.
And you also do the same thing with August Wilson, right?
Absolutely. And my work on Lynn Nottage, so when Dr. Young, Harvey, approached me and invited me to do that, I think he did so having read my work on Lynn Nottage.
Right.
And of course, particularly her work on Ruined.
Right. I
was really fascinated on how much she invested in going outside of the United States, knowing full well that the diaspora is all over the place. Right. And so I was impressed with the fact that she could situate her play within the United States, the place, but at the same time, she was able to draw commonalities and threads, empathy, concern. And so she made the concern of those women the concerns of people here, even so far as going up on Capitol Hill. So I was impressed with that. And so I said, I want to do that.
Right.
And so I was pleasantly surprised to learn that there were other Black playwrights with similar thinking, Black female playwrights with similar thinking. Not to just think that the United States is the end of the world, is all there is in the world, that there are cross-cultural connections that we need to pay attention to.
Right. Dr. Shannon, your work has, of course, extended beyond the classroom. You've been a member of several prestigious formal academic organizations throughout your career. You've served as the president of the Black Theater Network from 2006 to 2008. You served as one of the founding editors of the Black Theater Network online referee publication, Continuum, a journal of African diaspora drama, theater, and performance, which I just want to give a nod that was my first publication, the inaugural issue. So thank you for that. You've also served as editor of Theater Topics, College Language Association Journal and the Zora Neale Hurston Forum. And currently you serve as the Dean-elect for the College of Fellow of the American Theater. How have these appointments shaped your career?
I was just trying to remember all those that you mentioned there. I want to give a shout out to my colleagues in the Black Theater Network.
Okay, yes.
I think I often tell the story, and this is a beginning point also for me in terms of my scholarship in Black theater. It was sort of a natural, I needed to be there.
Yes.
I should have been there, and I was there.
Yes.
And I just kind of like stumbled into when they were having a meeting at one of the festivals in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and the Black Theater Network was having their meeting because they had concurrent conference along with that. And I was just opening doors and peeping. I opened the door and I peeped in. I said, I wonder what's going on here. And they were beckoning me, come on in, come on in, come on in. And I'd often tell that story. They were so warm and welcoming to me then. And I felt comfortable among them. And being affiliated with the Black Theater Network allowed me to look at Black theater through different lens.
Yes.
Or maybe not so different, but expanded lens.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Expand the lens of Black theater. And my affiliation with members of the Black Theater Network lifted Black theater to a passionate level. These people are passionate about Black theater, almost to the point of religion. Yeah. I mean, and of course you read all this on their website, and I like that. Yeah. I love the passion for what they do. They're serious about what they do. And so ultimately, of course, I came back. I stayed. They invited me to break bread with them. I did. I stayed. I was impressed. But that moment sort of enriched my understanding of Black theater. Mm-hmm. The essential importance, the existential importance of Black theater in terms of our identity, even more so now, Khalid, than ever.
Yeah.
Uncompromising nature of Black theater.
Yes.
Yeah, so that stands out. And I can't remember the other. Most currently, I served as editor of the College Language Association Journal. And prior to that, I served as editor of Theater Topics for 2 years, co-editor for 2 years, under Jonathan Chambers, Dr. Jonathan Chambers, I think, and editor for 2 years. Dr. Lindgren was my co-editor. And so I learned a lot about editing, just being in, all the nuts and bolts of editing there.
Right.
As a sort of like an understudy to Jonathan, who shared a lot of information with me about it. And I watched and dealing with the editor, assisting the editor, and working alongside the managing editor. And then subsequently, the College Language Association came a calling.
Yeah.
They were in need of an editor. I applied for the position. And of course, I did list the fact that I had been editor of Theater Topics, and then I became editor of the College Language Association. And, the tenure, I do have a tendency to stay quite a while. Right. I became editor of the College Language Association in 2014. And I just rotated off in I believe it was last year.
Right.
It was like, so I guess they said, don't rock the boat.
Right.
But there also comes a time, as you know, that you sense you need to evolve, you need to move on. You've done as much as you can, but you want to leave the organization on solid ground.
Yes.
And so I had that feeling and, took it with the College Language Association. And of course, they appreciated my service, but now they have an equally capable editor in my position. And currently Dean-elect of the College of Fellows. I'm working now alongside Gail Marderosa, lovely person. Gail is a natural born leader. I love working with her. I guess I'm a dean-elect in training.
Yes.
And of course, because of the COVID situation, they decided to delay my ascending to the deanship, which is perfectly fine with me.
Yes.
So I'm just the dean in waiting.
Yes.
But in the process, I'm learning the membership, a wonderful group of brilliant, active, dynamic fellows of the College of Fellows. We meet annually. Well, we tried to, of course, COVID had something to say about it, but we met virtually last year. We come together in April. I was inducted as a fellow of this organization in 2018. Shout out to Dr. Harry Elam, who nominated me. And at that time, pre-COVID, we had our installation ceremony at the Kennedy Center.
Yes.
And this year, we're going to install another class, not this year, next year, 2023, at a face-to-face gathering at the National Press Club.
Yes.
In Washington, D.C. And then ultimately, I believe we'll also wind up at the Kennedy Center. So lots of good things ahead as well.
Yes. Dr. I want to ask a question about practice, or rather, should I say a practical question. You've done a lot of work, and of course, you have a robust career, even though you formally retired from Howard University in 2017. You've not slowed down, obviously. For example, in 2018, I believe it was, you published Modern American Playwrights, and your area was the 1980s that you covered. A very important book, very, very important for me. I'm working on an essay about August Wilson and David Henry Hwang, as you know, for the upcoming Cambridge in Context, August Wilson in Context, as you are very much a part of. And so that book I thought was it was timely. And I was like, oh yes, this is what I'm looking for. A resource for me, for my own scholarship as well. But and so you haven't slowed down. But I guess, how do you do all of this? I mean, practically, is there a routine? Do you have a schedule?
There is no routine. There is no routine. The thing about it is that when I was still a professor at Howard University, I put my heart and soul into the classroom.
Yes.
Trying to be the best instructor that I could be. And that took a lot of time.
Yes.
Took a lot of time. And then, of course, doing that and still trying to publish, still trying to attend conferences and do all of that. It was really stressful, to say the least. I did it. Yes. I'm glad that I did it. You do it enough to say, well, this is what I do. It's my raison d'etre. I don't know anything else to do if you do it that often. Right. But even in retirement, Khalid, that sense of calling has not subsided.
Right. Right.
I realized that retirement and the definition needs to be revisited of retirement. Really? You know what I mean? It's a segue.
Yes.
I retired as a scholar. I remain a scholar.
Yes.
I'm still curious. I'm still aware of things that need to be done, work that needs to be done. And thank goodness you are doing a major part of that work. I'm so proud of you. Footnote.
Following in the footsteps, right?
But I mean, I think you sense, and I've said this to you several times, I see myself in you.
Yes.
In terms of your work with Linda Dickerson. I've said that to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
You do it because it's like breathing. You don't feel like somebody's making you do it. It's just something that it becomes a part of you.
Yes.
A logical extension of who I am. Not to say at some point, I would say, no, I can't do that.
Right.
And I do say no. But a lot of what I do is a result of picking and choosing.
Yes.
That's the luxury that I have now. picking and choosing in terms of the importance and the impact of the work. And I gotta say, you do feel a little, pride in the sense that people are seeking you out,
Yes.
to be quite honest.
Yes.
And that was the case with the modern American theater in the 1980s. Sort of a kind of a sneaky way to get me to write an essay on August Wilson. and I imagine that at their meeting, the editorial meeting, they say, okay, so we need somebody to edit this collection on the 1980s. And somebody may have said, oh, well, Sandra Shannon, they said August Wilson first.
Yeah.
Let's see what playwrights were popular and were producing in the 1980s. And August Wilson's name, rightfully came up.
Yes.
And then they said, well, who is it that we can get to write? Right. And I would imagine, even now I tell somebody, you put my name in Google.
Yes.
Yes. And I've had several people say, well, Dr. Shannon, I put your name in Google. And I said, we have to invite you.
Yes.
I had nothing to do with what, of course, nobody does with that information craziness, the internet, they call the internet.
Yes.
But, people go to the internet and they scour the internet for scholars on who's written on August Wilson. And largely I'm invited because of that. But that was a fun project. Yes. It was a fun project. It was ambitious, but I took it anyway. Yeah. It was ambitious because, Khalid, not only did I have to write my article, which was quite substantial, right. I had to, what's the kind word? Maneuver, encouraged my 3 other writers to move along. First of all, I had to solicit them.
Yes.
I had to solicit writers for, is it Irene Fornes? I think that's, you pronounce the name.
Fornes, David Henry Hwang.
Yes, August Wilson and one other. Is
it David?
Henry hit,
what?
Madam. Yeah.
David Henry Hwang, and then there's another one I forgot. There's another playwright in there who was very prominent in the 80s and early 90s.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. I should have brought that book with me as well. But yeah, I is it Mamet? David Mamet. David Mamet. Yeah. Yes, David Mamet. But yeah, I had to coax them, I'd write them, and I'd sort of on another level, I had to, they gave me a list of playwrights, right? And basically said, you're gonna write on August Wilson, okay? Yeah. But it's up to you to find who's gonna, and so again, I did what they did. I did some Googling, I did some talking, I did some research and see who has written on what. And those were the names that came up. And fortunately, we were able to bring that project to fruition.
Yes.
It was a lot of tentacles involved there.
Yeah. Congratulations on that.
Thank you so much.
It is an important book, in particular that lengthy series, taking decade by decade. I think it's a very important book and an important contribution.
Right. Thank you so much. Even to the picture of Reagan on the cover.
Yes.
They asked me for my input on the cover, and I gave them several options. So
yes,
that's what it turned out. 1980s and Ronald Reagan. Yes. I guess they figured that goes together.
But one thing I will say is that there is a critique in the book about the 1980s and the Reagan era, and the period. I think it works. Right? It's a little bit it's provoking, right? And I think it does so well. I have one last question for you, Dr. Shannon. What advice do you have for junior scholars and professors who desire to have a robust career such as yours?
I would point to you as an example, not to embarrass you. But I think, again, I see myself in you in the trajectory that you are following. I see you.
Yeah.
I see you.
Yeah, thank you.
And by that, I mean, I see your publications. I see your commentary. I see the decisions that you're making on who to be involved with.
Yes.
You know, who to spend your time with, who to share your intellect with,
yes.
where to be at the right time. It's strategic.
Yeah.
It's all of that strategic, but strategy aside, there has to be passion.
Yes. Yes.
Which I think you have. And you know, and the thing about me, I didn't even know what you called it. I just was moving forward.
Right.
I didn't put a name on it.
Right. Right.
I didn't put a name on it. But I think it's worthwhile to be ahead of the curve.
Yes.
I want to say that. You know, because there's using, for example, writing a dissertation, which is an exercise, right? In a dissertation, I think as far as I can recall, a lot of the success of a dissertation is how much you know about what other people have done.
Yes.
You know, you have to write what other people, you know, nod your head here and whatnot, and all of that, go through the rituals to let people know that you know your stuff.
Yes.
So that's what the dissertation does.
Yes.
How deep and how wide your knowledge is of the field. But now as young scholars, the dissertation behind you, I think you need to, faculty scholars need to find a passion.
Yes.
A passion early.
Yes.
You know, this thing about I need a year off. I need to find myself, whatnot. I think if you can find a balance between the necessity, you got to do it. A balance between the necessity of publishing, right, on one hand, and making a difference on the other, I think you'll be successful.
Yes.
You know, it's kind of hard to keep all those things in the back of your mind.
Yes.
You know, the clock is ticking and all of this, you know, and I don't want to write about this because somebody else has written about it, blah, blah, blah. But if you can focus and land on a topic or an area where you can get ahead of the curve.
Yes.
Ride that wave.
Yes. Yes.
Sorry for mixing these metaphors, but you get what I'm saying. Right. Ride that wave, but you have to situate yourself in that wave in order to be successful. So I'd like to think that that's what I've done, and that's what I continue to do. I love what I do, largely because the reaction that I get from my peers and colleagues such as yourself encourages me. Those encouraging words, encouraging in writing, and of course, certainly encouraging in receiving this Career Achievement Award. So you know, but I'm not going to stop.
Right.
I received this most humbly. I'm very appreciative of it. It means quite a bit to me. I'm so very honored to sit here before you and to accept this award.